We don't really have a quorum here this evening. So it's going to be difficult to conduct any business. However, we can review what's in front of us as far as, all the greenhouse materials we can review and go over. And I think we can reach consensus on a direction. So, Bob, do you want to give us the update on the HVAC?
Yeah, and I'll defer to Steve Smith, our OPM, and Steve Bailey, our Director of Facilities. I know that they are, in the last conversation we had, the project moving along just as we had hoped it to move along, as they're bringing systems online, different elements of it. There is testing being done by the commissioning agent. The action that the committee took at the last meeting, which was to approve the additional work. ATC has ordered the materials again. It's like anything that you order, there are some materials immediately available and some that are going to be subject to the supply chain issues. But that's all moving along, and as we talked about at the very beginning of this project, it's not linear. We can do things in parallel, so different elements are coming on board. Steve could probably give us more on the ground.
Yep, last meeting, we were talking about hot water heaters in the boiler room, those are all plumbed pipe, oil hooked up to them. I believe they were starting to hook up the wire today, those should be running by midweek, week's end at latest. The rooftop unit for the library was online today for the first time. It's still on manual, it's not hooked up. They're still working on putting all the computer controls into the system. The guidance area should be online probably tomorrow, I guess, or tomorrow, or the next day, the latest. So most of the units will be online. I'd say by the time we go on break, we should have everything online, and the rest of the finished stuff should be done by, I guess, with the exception of the add-ons, by beginning of the year. The add-ons, as we know, are the rooms down in the lower level where they used to have the garage doors, and they have the big heaters that turn on and sound like a torpedo. Those are going to be replaced with baseboards, so it'll be a much quieter setting. And the S22 getting a new heating system, and that's ordered. They got half of it. They're still waiting on the other half. What they're going to do is start with the outside piece, put that in, put the fence around it, and get it all ready to hook up. So when the pots come in, they just tear them off from the inside and hook up the new interior units. They're moving right along. Well, you can hear them. You hear, especially over my head. They're moving right along. They're going all out. So I can't see why they would be done.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
That's really the controls and the original work are really what's pending, and the main throws of what's going on right now, and then the add-on work.
Yeah. The add-on work is nice. It's a nice piece.
Budget? Anything to?
No, we're going to defer till the next meeting.
Okay. Okay, approvals. We have this approval here. I don't know what we can do with this without a quorum. Any suggestions? I don't know.
Is it one member missing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike said that he would. Well, we.
I've talked to him. Can he quote? I mean, if that's the case, we could set up If we can Zoom, we could set up a Zoom meeting just for that and get that done.
They can't join the Zoom that we have going right now.
No?
You can give it a mic.
All right, that'd be great.
That's the only idea I have.
Maybe
Yes.
that's-
Yeah, maybe the one.
I had one.
Get a hold of that. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Any chance you could get on the Zoom call for a few minutes? We have an invoice here that we need to approve. I think it's on the school district's website.
We email
I'm working on it.
You can email it to them, JC.
it.
All right, that sounds good. We'll come back to this in a few minutes. He's gonna go log on. Great. We'll have that, get this done. So. Can you email him this information? Just so make sure he has it. 'Cause I said, I went back 2 weeks today looking for all, I couldn't find it, so.
It's Mike whatever, right?
Yeah.
Sent that email.
Oh, yeah.
You know when you walk on, Jeremy, if you
Will do. He says, thank you, stand by.
would. Okay. We're almost there.
Think of it, a year ago, we wouldn't have taken to do
I know.
this, right? Look how far we've come.
Is there anything the same anymore?
The good, the bad, and the-
Does anybody have any questions associated with this? Yeah, I looked at it. It's fine with me.
Yes. The work is done. See about it.
Ring the bell.
He's here.
All right.
I can see him.
Hi, Mike, how are you?
See?
Mike,
Mike, do you have any questions concerning the payment request?
You're muted, Mike. Try again.
I have it up on my screen and I did review it.
Okay. Any questions?
No,
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve this?
We'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Better.
Good
you're
job,
welcome.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Better.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay. Taken care of. All right, we want to defer, let's want to get right into the greenhouse discussion at this point, and we'll just, okay. So what's the plan? You want Lou to go first, or how do you
Well,
want this?
I just want to say a couple of things first before we start. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the greenhouse. I know there was a lot at the last meeting. Since the last meeting, I have had a chance to meet with one of the teachers from the Ag Science program. And I just want to kind of put this in perspective, that this is really quite a problem for us to have. Because the problem is that we want to support with the best that we can provide the Ag Science program. And the issue that we have is just what that support looks like. That's a really good problem to have compared to what many districts around us are facing. So that's like, I want everybody to kind of keep that in mind, that this is really about supporting a program that we all want to see succeed. There are some very different ideas and perspectives about how to move forward, and the whole goal of tonight is to hear what was planned, what we have planned through the architect's work. We're going to hear from a member of the science department, the Ag Science department, and ultimately, what we want to make sure that we do moving forward is have a plan so that whatever we decide to do has the functionality that is necessary for our program according to what our teachers want. And we also want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for growth and for the future, right? I mean, the greenhouse that we currently have has its issues, definitely has its issues. It also has a special place in the hearts of many of our community members. But there are things that need to be addressed for sure. And it was 20 something years ago, or 20 years ago roughly, that was put up. I think some technologies have changed, some advancements have changed. So we want to explore what is possible, what our needs are, and we want to make sure that we have an agreement so that everybody is happy for us to move forward to support the program, which we all agree with, everybody agrees with. So that's really the purpose of tonight. I think because the boards are set up, we might want to hear what this vision is. And then we can remove the boards, because I think it's Katie that's going to do the presentation. She needs the computer, so we'll get that set up and she can do her presentation. And then I'm sure there are questions. And I want those questions to really focus on functionality, need, and alignment with program objectives and goals. And then hopefully we can come to some consensus about moving forward, because we need consensus in order for us to take the next step. The last thing I want is for this conversation to continue to occur, and then we end up with nothing done, because that's not helpful either. So that's my 2 cents. That makes sense to everybody? All right, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Lou, that means you're up.
Is there a better position for these? I know I'm talking to both.
No, I can see him from here.
Okay.
I've seen him before.
So, good evening, everybody. My name is Louis Torado. I'm president of Torado Architects. I am also an Exeter resident. With me is our civil engineer, Dave D'Amico from D'Amico Tech Engineering. I'd like to start just by, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this, but let me let's just go through. Describe the general project area, which is located, this is the main high school, middle school area. The tennis courts are located here. Field and track, football fields here. Then we zoom into the area where the proposed greenhouse is located. It is identified in yellow, and it comes at the end of this square. This is where the existing Martian greenhouse is. This is the other greenhouse. And then for references, we have 2 photographs. The first one is taken in this direction as to where the proposed greenhouse is located. The second one is an area that we looked at. We've looked at alternate sites for providing parking, and it was in this area, and it shows the difficulty with that, and that there's an existing slope from the road on that. And then the third one just locates a picture of where the existing greenhouse is. I'm going to go into a brief review. If you want me to go into any more detail at any time, please stop me and I'll dig into the drawing. So the project currently is at stage 3 of the Hvac process. We've completed schematic designs that we're going to see tonight, and it's being cost estimated right now. We expect those estimates to come back at the end of this week. As I mentioned, this is the end of the existing high school. The proposed greenhouse is located here. The project includes sidewalks going directly to the greenhouse and also to the bar parking space. If you see the north arrow over there, you can see that the greenhouse is oriented exactly as the current greenhouse is. And that is having the long ends east and west. I have the existing survey. And then this shows the other part of the project, which is the creation of a new parking area, entrances at these locations and that location, parking spaces, and then this connects in 2 locations to the existing building through walkways that are located here. We have some grading plans that shows you how it works. And then this is to further orient you in relation to the existing school. The center corridor for this wing, this is where that partial greenhouse is located here. And as you can see, this corridor will lead to where the new greenhouse is. Okay, this is more detail of the proposed greenhouse. You have the foundation plan. The foundations are going to come off and really create a low wall of concrete on which the prefabricated aluminum greenhouse will sit. This is the floor plan. You see we have a number of entry points and egress points. All of the concrete slab is gently pitched to interior floor drains that we have. This is a plan of the roof of the of the greenhouse. This, if I can explain this. This is a greenhouse, the same greenhouse that we designed for Narragansett High School. If you can see, it has 3 peaks, and each one of these peaks have operable ventilators that open up when to prevent overheating of the greenhouse. That's what this roof vent shows. So there, you see how each one of these would slope up to be able to ventilate the greenhouse. We have the exterior elevations. You can see how the concrete wall comes up and protects the bottom of the space inside and outside. And here you see the operation of those vents. Some details of the foundation. You see it in isometric here and how it steps up above the floor line and allow the openness of the doors. All of the structural engineering for that. We have electrical plan, power plan. There will be conduits that are run from the existing building to the greenhouse that will provide water, electricity, fire alarm, and conduits for communication and security. This just shows some of the work that's required inside the existing building to connect to those utilities. And then I should mention that the greenhouse comes with a standard alone heating system. So we provide the fuel for it. We expect it to be a propane fuel source. So all of that is included also. We've had really good experience with this greenhouse manufacturer. It's unfortunate that he wasn't able to be with us tonight because of travel restrictions. He was not able to make it. It's from Holland. The manufacturing takes place in Holland. But we've had really good luck with the manufacturer and also with the certified installer that's local to this area. As I mentioned, we provided the same greenhouse for Narragansett High School. We also did all of the botanical gardens at Roger Williams Park, not only with this big structure, but also portions that is more of a working greenhouse. I have also to the committee the brochure of the company and some of the main highlights of why the manufacturer feels the state-of-the-art greenhouse is the best option. Okay. So I wouldn't lose them. Okay, so if I may, I'll just read some of what he sent me. All steel greenhouse construction will be statically calculated according to the local building codes and will be ordered to each individual project. All raw steel will be tailored, hot, drilled, welded, and in addition, there will be lintels to have all materials galvanized on both inside and outside. This will be corrosion guaranteed for 25 years. All construction material will be supplied in a manner that no welding or drilling is needed at the building site. It's just a matter of assembling with bolts and nuts. The aluminum system will also be tailored and will be delivered to fit at the building site.
All aluminum profiles will have rubber inlays to have an exact fit to the glass and help to reduce noise and wind outside conditions. Also, it will insulate the total glazing system. My glasses are falling out. Glass used for cladding. The greenhouse will be 5/32 thick tempered glass, which is approximately 6 times stronger than a neo horticultural glass, and of course contributes to safety. The so-called Dutch Van Loo style greenhouse is designed in a way that all needed technical systems will be integrated at the most efficient way. Curtain systems will be closed fully, and when open, transmit the daylight option. Also, the irrigation and heating systems will do. So, that concludes our presentation. Do you have any questions or any comments?
Question, is there any information to elaborate on what's included inside structurally for the greenhouse setup? As far as benches, tables, hangers,
In past projects, that's kind of part of a furnishings package that happens. It's not necessarily need to happen.
so the cost in the plan right now does not include any of the interior functionality of the greenhouse.
I have to check. I'll check.
Was there a reasoning given why propane versus oil?
I think, Steve, I know that you've had some discussions
Yeah, I
about this with our
I
mechanical
told
engineer.
Myers today, and he had asked me about oil and propane. And propane is what comes standard with these buildings. That's what they recommended with these buildings. And oil would mean, it doesn't come with an oil furnace. You'd have to purchase a separate setup, oil tank and such, so. It's fine, we don't have propane anywhere else in the district. We have one small propane tank, which we have actually shut down, it was a Mark's room. And I kind of was going back and forth with Will about it, but basically it came down to, that's what the building designer says is best for the system. It takes up less room, don't have the oil tank, just have one propane tank, that's it. And it was, it's more designed for this building is what I was told.
I guess I'm just wondering from Jeffrey's standpoint, and he's in maintenance, if you don't have propane here, it's
Well-
a completely different maintenance system, plus the volatility on pricing.
Propane is much easier to maintain.
Oh, yes, there's less working
There's
parts.
a lot less working parts, you don't have pumps, you don't have oil tanks to maintain and leak.
Like we're having oil pumps put in right now, the pump systems, they have to put the same type of pump system by code. It's a large unit, takes up a lot of space. They all takes up space, and the unit itself is bigger than a propane system would be. They're much smaller. And that was one of the reasons he was going over all this with me size-wise and all that. And I said, well, sounds like the propane is the way to go with this. I mean, it's not, I guess it wouldn't be carved in stone, but I'd say that would be what the recommendation of the builder is also. So, and it comes with it, part of the price.
Do you have the staff technical ability to maintain it?
Propane? Yes. Absolutely. That's what I did. I'm a heating and plumbing.
Add to that, propane was very clean.
Yes,
You had
it's
one,
much cleaner.
Yeah.
and you had a problem with your system, you had black soot on the glass, and you
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. It does burn much cleaner.
What is the,
While we're talking about heating and so forth, have any projections been done on the yearly cost of heating a greenhouse of this size with this much room space and so forth?
I can go to see. Yes, they have. So part of the rights of middle require us to look at a life cycle analysis of the building. So
I think the committee needs to consider that seriously.
Well, right now, when we run this greenhouse, it's 500 gallons of water. So That's a lot of wood.
This one needs to be plastic though, and the walls, it's not a tight system.
No, I'm just saying, just an example of 500 gallons a week is a lot of fuel.
That's a lot of
It
work.
wasn't doing that.
Just for perspective, my name is Gina Thurman. My husband and I own our kids' farm in Exeter. We have 7 greenhouses, all of which are run on oil. We run year round. We grow hydroponic produce year round. We go through about 500 gallons of oil at peak cold in the winter every 10 days in 7 greenhouses.
I'm just telling you what it.
No,
what
I
you're paying.
believe you, and just from the perspective of that's in greenhouses that have had their coverings maintained and kept up and consistent. So just from a matter of perspective, some of what you may be spending on oil, if you reallocate that money into a company, you make a huge difference. But
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and the venting in there is not always working in unison with the heating, and there's a lot of things that would need to be repaired to make that work. I mean, and plus the heating system is over 20 years old, and it's forced hot air, which is, what's gonna happen anyway.
second question is, what's the footprint of this greenhouse versus the existing greenhouse size-wise? Is it the same? Is it bigger, smaller?
The square footage is a little bit bigger.
What are the dimensions? 53 feet long? Only have a 30 by 60?
This one's 32 by 53.
32 by 53, 30 by 60.
Smaller.
I have a question about that. So I know I had greenhouses before where the vents like kind of open up on the sides, and then the ones that we have out here, obviously the vent opens up on the sidewall. And the one you have here, it opens up on the top,
Yes.
right? Ultimately, they're all doing the same thing, trying to circulate air. I'm assuming that this is not like a separate package where this is gonna be automated where it's without paying extra, it's automatically open up based on temperature, or is this the way you have it right now, something that we have to pay extra to get that to happen?
It has both methods of operation, manual and electronically controlled by.
Okay. My other question for the vent was, so Rhode Island is very humid, so sometimes you have to run the vents when it's a rainy day, right? Just to dry things out, circulate the air. So I'm curious on this one, 'cause I've never had one open up this way, I always have one open up the side, and then again, sidewalls. So how do you do that? How do you circulate air in there on a rainy day without having rain go into your greenhouse?
I will check on that for you.
Does a high school run an automatic generator, electricity goes out?
Yes, we have a generator.
So this greenhouse would constantly have electricity, regardless of weather.
For the most part, yeah. Unless,
It can't be the most part.
unless the generator died, besides that, yeah.
That's very important. In the growing season, you can lose a greenhouse in 20 minutes.
Yeah, the generator's been here for only 3 years, so out of the 20 it's been. But yes, unless something catastrophic happens to the
So
generator.
that's already been considered.
So it will tie into the generator.
Yeah, the generator size to run the entire facility.
These, both buildings, everything.
Yeah.
Was that?
We haven't lost everything in the greenhouse at one point. So we lost power.
We should cover off or something. If we're doing something in the building, yeah. We all get, see, remember we had to take all the nets out.
Yes, they're doing the
That was
shutdown.
fun, right? That was fun.
Yeah. And they did the shutdown in 8 days.
Right, in front of the class, so that-
Yep. And it only ended up lasting like 3.5 hours.
Right, so yeah.
What irrigation system is included with the package, because it only talks about who can provide. So I'm curious about what irrigation system will be provided for that.
I have to get, and I apologize for having not having the resources, but we expected them to do it.
Right, maybe you can make a list for them.
Yeah.
right? And,
Sure.
I think that's a very important factor to consider with the greenhouse, especially in a teaching facility. We want to be teaching a system that the students are going to be able to be involved in the functionality of it.
I have 2 more questions, kind of along that same line. When we talk about a state-of-the-art greenhouse and greenhouse controls, are they we kind of look at manual controls, automatic controls, but we also have computer control system. Is this greenhouse set up for computer controls? And the reason I ask is because ultimately computer technology changes pretty regularly, and it's something that becomes an ongoing maintenance cost consideration. So are we working with a computer control thermostat versus a regular thermostat? Automatic, but sometimes it's a little bit simpler technology is almost a little better than some of the super fancy technology, because the super fancy technology needs to be constantly upgraded. We see that in just the computers in schools in general. And that can be a problem, maybe not today, tomorrow, but 5 years down the road, that could, if that's not maintained. And is there an alarm system built in with it so that should something happen, the generator functions? And you'll get a call that says, oh my God, the heat's out. And it's different, or somebody gets a call, so that the opportunity to mitigate that issue. Is that something that's included with it?
Okay, let me see if I can remember.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the first one is that we fully expect that the controls will be both manual and be tied into the business, to the building's
And with propane, like Lee was just saying, propane, it won't matter how or not it's gonna run.
Did that answer your other question?
Okay, I just want the committee to know, okay, I'm a former owner of Orchid's Farm for 28 years, and I now work with the African Alliance in Providence for their greenhouses. And one of the things you have, when you're the owner and your house is 25 feet from the greenhouse, and the alarm goes off, you're there, and you can solve the problem. People who do not grow, do not know how quickly a crop can die. And, you know, so you've got a teacher who is going to get, I mean, obviously people in the school will know the electricity's off, but somebody who's a grower needs to know those kinds of things. I just want the committee to be aware of the seriousness of some of these concerns.
Well, first of all, the generator is on an automatic switch. So power goes off, the generator comes on automatically.
And as soon as there's any power outages, I live very close by, I come and check to make sure the generator is running at all the schools within the first.
As long as everyone's aware.
No, it's great, it's a great question.
When their parents put their greenhouse up, I was kind of a backseat consultant for the teacher who was there as things went. And there were some things that happened with it, that some plans that I don't think the teachers came in at the beginning of, that the committee should be aware of. For instance, copper pipe on an outside wall, rather than plastic. We don't want to use plastic because we know better. There was also the only sink that was provided in the whole greenhouse for all these students to work with was a tiny sink. And I think that had to be replaced and so forth. That's all. I mean, I know that the greenhouse is working and there are beautiful things in it, but we don't want to make the same mistakes. So there's a lot of, you really need to have a grower to, you know, pay attention to this as you go along. It's not fair for you to make a decision without realizing what it entails.
I speak for myself, when I say that it would be a pleasure for someone like you.
Another minor concern with the doors, that's going to be an issue with schools is ADA compliance with the wheelchair room. That's a factor in, and as you go to the interior spacing, benches and workable space, making sure that there's space for that. Because I come from the perspective of both being a private grower now, but also being a former ag teacher who taught greenhouse classes at Charter. And those were some of the issues that we ran into because our greenhouses were older and didn't have some of that spacing requirement. You know, how the greenhouse is situated was a big factor.
And I've never, I mean, some ag teachers from Pontiac had said, you know, cement, they're a little concerned about the cement. I guess they have a greenhouse with cement in it, and it's a lot of like algae growing on it, and you have to use algicides all the time. So is there a reason, I guess, that has to be cement versus sand, gravel, and then landscape classic. I don't know, I mean, because I'm maybe, I understand that there's drains and then it's gonna go towards it, but some of our classrooms have drains and they don't, the water does not go towards the.
I want to make sure.
I think it needs foundations.
You're referring to the compensation.
I think the slab, I just don't want it to be slippery for students, I don't want to have algae growing everywhere around, like every week, like, you know, maybe it's myself, I'm sitting there, like, you know, scrubbing it down with algicides to take the algae off the.
Yeah, so there's still some space problems with the concrete floors for teaching greenhouses.
Katie, what's the floor in the existing?
It's, I think they put sand, they have sand level 6 feet.
No, and that's that was taken down, right? Gravel base, all the subsoil silts, everything with the stone was removed. Pretty much, you know, almost a 5-6 foot further around the outside footprint of the greenhouse. Then there was numerous problems in the community that all in all, we were saying gravel came from the state facilities. We aligned that with the lake and file, with John, water resources at the time. And that gravel was all donated to us. And we provide installation, and at that point, we came to the very top, where we came with the standard, a process type gravel. That well, as a range, if I remember, spreading on a couple of days before Christmas, very visible a lot. Myself and my stepfather, so it was great. So that's the content, that's why that greenhouse brings so well.
It's a landscape classic. On top of it, so I replaced it twice, the kids, and we take everything out, the kids lay it down, and I think it's been twice every 15 years. Because over time, you have community, everyone's walking in there, plant sales, over time, you get things like that, you don't want that, so then just lay it down.
But that floor current.
It's like a landscape plastic on top of the gravel.
And that has not.
Never, no.
We have-
Notice
we have
that, you can leave the
one
hose on, I don't do this, but you can leave the hose on Friday, you come back on Monday, you can see it.
And that's exactly what was designed when it was put in, and I'm pretty sure it was 6 feet, because I remember joking about being 6 feet under, because of our family. But that we created the leach and the ability for it to provide its own drainage should always be left on. And you wouldn't end up with that kind of puddling or flooding.
Lou, can we use the same site for this greenhouse?
That was going to be my next question.
So what do you
Explain
want?
Why you wanted it in that size.
Well, given, I understand the new greenhouse is going to require a foundation to support its structure. But can we leave the gravel floor? Do we need a concrete floor? Can we just put the foundation in on the same site and leave the floors gravel
For this new greenhouse.
for the new greenhouse?
Yeah, I would definitely look at it.
Yeah, because the other option would be if you put down the whole thing, those drains would have to somehow be run into the base of that existing drainage, which is really good. I know because we've had broken pipes and it's never wet.
Right,
It's
yeah.
muddy. And I mean, so even if they can't support it without the floor, if there's enough drains in the floor, that would probably help too.
Yeah, cement for how can drain, how do you keep it? Drains are getting clogged with soil.
That was my question. With drainage like that, I know one of the schools that uses it has experienced that kind of a backup with their systems. And, you know, what's the company's like strategic plan for that? Because I know that they had to go to unclog those drains. Becomes elaborate and it creates a problem in the teaching space.
What plan did you have for the floor drains connected to?
I'm sorry, one more time.
With floor drains, if you did pull the slab and have this floor drain, were you gonna pipe that off to a leach field?
Yeah, there's,
Or
maybe
here?
I don't want to waste your trip over here, so please answer that question.
Yeah, that was the proposal. Yeah, because you, as you know, you have very sandy soil around here, so your groundwater depth is pretty deep, and you get really good infiltration. So that's what we were going to do. So I wouldn't really worry too much about the infiltration of that, but a great,
I try not to go inside, I'm more of an outside plumber. The inside is really for the,
We're gonna include drainage gallons below.
yeah, correct, that's what is proposed.
This the old, greenhouse already has all this substrate that absorbs the water. One, the cost of installing each field out of the equation. If you went with a
Different
dirt
location,
floor, a
rather
dirt
than,
floor,
rather than.
at the same location, because the new one proposed is gonna be smaller anyway. So it should fit in the footprint.
I couldn't tell you, you know, the longevity, I would, just in my, you know, review of this, I would suspect that is built for longevity. I'm not sure what the maintenance of having, you know, a gravel floor, I'm sure that takes some maintenance, some preparation. That I would suspect would last the building's lifetime. And why couldn't there be a system, and you're worried about slipping. That
Well, yeah, I
was
just
one of
heard
the-
from other teachers in the state that, like, you know, it is slippery. Sometimes the slope is not always in the alley build, so I just figured, you know, we have now is not like the floor we have now. I don't have that issue.
Yeah.
Not scrubbing it like crazy and.
But that certainly would handle the drainage. Yeah, you know, and really, what are you doing? You're watering plants, it's not like you're getting, deluges of, you know, yeah, well, but, you know, rain runoff is quite excessive. You know, that's what I'm like, deal with, you know, millions of gallons of water. You know, drain, that's not something that, so. Yeah, that, I mean, that, you know, some type of flood drain system in a sand or a gravel, I would probably go for something like that. You know, but just to, you know, put, you know, gravel in there, the sandy gravel, without some type of maybe flood drain system underneath to be able to pick that up and take it outside. the building. I would look at something, you know, like that if you were, you know, asking me to look at some type of system inside the building like that. You know, because I like it from water away from it. You gotta get it away, you know. You know, eventually it does, the soil can fade, the soil can, you know, depending on the bacteria that gets in there and the waste that gets down in there, it can actually clog and fade.
Especially those ones.
Yeah, yeah, so maybe, you know, having a, you know, a flood drain system, perforated pipes, little stone under there, that would probably last for, you know, who knows, you know.
I've been assigned technical thought that goes with that. If the possibility exists to not have to lay a single pad, we all know cement's really expensive. Could that money be reallocated to recovering the old greenhouse so you can keep up?
Well, I think there's a lot more involved than just recovering the old greenhouse. Lou, can you get into that a little bit?
Plus what you're asking,
Figure that out.
what you're asking is to recover the greenhouse where it's existing and then put the new one up without having the floor in there. So you can't have both because you've got to have the cement floor in the other one because it doesn't have that drainage system that the old greenhouse has.
I'm just trying to think outside the box.
No, I understand what you're saying, but to have both of them, you'd have to do the whole greenhouse like this and then still have to recover that, and that's not, you know, that.
Or you just build this one in a similar manner, build it in line with the footprint that we have already.
But then we have to still dig out and get all that drainage in there if you're gonna not put the cement pad down, so that's gonna be a lot more
It would
excavation.
be expanding the program rather than decreasing the program, though.
It also merge the existing old techniques with the new technology of farming, both in place for the students to see. As Dean is talking, and Colin is talking, the many of these local farms that go last meeting that still operate as our kids farm does, with move style greenhouses, cold drains, those things. So you're giving the opportunity for the students to experience both that all lead to the sea. have. But they learn local technologies, because a lot of them are coming here to get educated. They're not here to just be channeled off in one direction, but wider the base of the education. The knowledge they get, the better they can streamline what they would like to do in the future, which is really the goal that we set out to do with students.
Well, let me ask you a question, because the budget is pretty much cast. It's been cast since the voters voted on it. So there's no money to do both unless we find ways to save some money. And my understanding, Lou, what was the price to renovate the current greenhouse and bring it up to RIDE standards?
I thought it was around 300,000.
Okay,
$1,000 to recover a greenhouse.
there's more than just, we're talking RIDE, Rhode Island Department of Ed standards.
To build a new one in the same place or to just replace it? Because I know Cherville Elementary just got a tree smashed down on their greenhouse. So they fixed the plastic, they fixed the end walls, they even fixed the pipes, but they didn't have to get like cement slabs, they didn't have to get like sprinkler systems or things like that. So I understand that if it was a newer greenhouse, you're building new.
The Rhode Island Department of Ed has classroom standards. What we're proposing meets those standards. What you have does not. So for us to take that greenhouse and bring it up to the current standards, it's about $300,000.
So you're talking classroom standards, not greenhouse growing standards.
No, the greenhouse is a classroom, but when we build something with the Rhode Island Department of Ed, it has to meet their building standards. Or they don't pay
So
for
they
it.
don't give us the money.
They don't give us the money.
You're not building it.
Where the funding coming?
You know, it's like owning a home, if it's a house furnished and the ground, you want to rebuild something, the chimney still exists. You can go on all the old permits, all the things with the existing structure.
And it isn't.
Why are you saying this is?
Because we're using state money to pay for it.
$100,000 then that greenhouse that has been in existence hasn't gone on little change all this time. Now all of a sudden it does because of this proposal.
I'm asking a question, and the question I'm asking is this. We know that we've already had the greenhouse looked at. We know that the greenhouse is going to cost $300,000 to bring it up to current standards. If that's, if the structure of the greenhouse is good, is the structure good? Is the steel structure good? Is that right? Okay, so the steel structure is still good. Okay, so, but it would be the end walls, all the wood basically would have to be replaced.
The plumbing, the mechanical.
The plumbing, mechanicals, so the heating.
Plus it has to have two exits, an entrance and an exit. The heating system has to be upgraded. And in order to do all that, it has to be up to standards. It's not like a tree falling on a greenhouse where the insurance company comes in and repairs just those things. It's once you start with the Rhode Island Department of Education, they want you to do exactly what their standards are, or they don't give you the money, and we get, what, 70%?
We're getting 2/3 basically.
And if you're doing the Rhode Island, their standard,
Yeah,
that could be a separate entity, what you're trying to propose. to go through here. The existing will still be done at a whole different level.
Yeah, but where's that money?
where's the money coming from?
Well, if you're talking 300,000, let's talk to a couple rows, what it costs to re-put end walls and re-put.
But even if you rebuild it, it has to be rebuilt to those standards because it's now being changed.
It's not being changed.
One way to really
You're
look
not
at it.
reconstructing the greenhouse, you're fixing this.
Once you start touching the electrical, the heating, the mechanicals, the only thing that's gonna be left is the hoops.
One way to look at it is the state looks at it and says, okay, if the original plan was to renovate this greenhouse, they require it to be renovated as needed. So you're really bringing the entire structure and all its contents up to a new status that will last so long as if a new one would. You know, for that 20 or 30 years or whatever the anticipated life of it is. So it's not just kind of, if this was a green, it's not just fixing end walls and a couple things. To Steve's point, replacing all the systems, you recovering, building, getting into that new status.
And the other thing is, and I'm sure this was some of the wrong, all work has to be done for the
We usually do it ourselves. No offense to everybody else, we usually do it ourselves for nothing, so. No, we don't pay for that. I know that. If no ride money is used on the old greenhouse, and we as parents and farmers and growers fundraise to recover and fix the end wall and the coverage, could we keep those? Could we put the ride money towards the new one? And work as a team to upgrade the old ones so that we could expand our footprint a little bit from a teaching perspective, or is Ryan gonna say, you touched it, you gotta put it off? If no ride money is used.
You have places like Argentina, community, and places.
Now, kind of the way the community built it. Materials and supplies and services, and we all pooled our resources and put this program together.
All those things were put in, like license, one, master pipe fitters that put in your heating systems, licensed electricians who stayed around and all of that, this wasn't that by some people that didn't know what was going on at the time when it was built, as we're talking about a greenhouse, that's been in the business, functioning as a learning platform. You know, there's the other thing that says provide that the greenhouse is full of plants.
Before we go too far, we still have a parking problem. And part of the issue with this whole plan here was, you know, put in a new greenhouse and then turn the other site into a parking lot. So if we did both, and I'm not saying we can or can't, and besides that, that's not our charter, so that's probably gonna move the discussion, but where would we move the parking if we're gonna lose?
Kate has some
If Kate presents, Kate has some great ideas, right? Like, I'm gonna say, maybe, maybe I think we'll just, and then we can tell what our program is, and just the program, you know, with the program needs to be.
So I'm just gonna say this, it won't be popular, but I've already said it to Katie, so I'm just gonna say it out loud so everybody knows where I'm coming from. 2 greenhouses has never been on anybody's radar throughout this entire process, which is 3 years in the making.
I agree with that.
And it kind of came to our attention in the 11.98th hour, like a month ago, in a 3-year plus process. So it's really hard for me to kind of step back and say, this makes a lot of sense, because it was not something that was even talked about as a need, as a want, as a desire, nothing in all of the conversations that we've had. So there's that. And personally, I get that people are connected to the old greenhouse, but I really don't want the decision to keep both to be based on what do I have to do to keep the old greenhouse versus what do I need to run an effective program. Because to me, that would be a giant waste of money. Because at the end of the day, we need to budget for upkeep of 2 greenhouses, heating of 2 greenhouses, electricity in 2 greenhouses, watering of 2 greenhouses, maintenance of 2 greenhouses. It's not currently in the budget. And since I'm ultimately the one that has to stand in front of the community members and say, this is what my proposed budget is, this is not an expense that has been on my radar at all. So I mean, I want to hear what people want to share, but I have pretty significant reservations about that plan because of the cost involved in not just the construction, but the maintenance. And I also am a little bit skeptical about the purpose. Like, what is the ultimate purpose? Are we saying this so that we can keep the old one because that's what people want? Or are we saying this because there's truly a need, which I struggle with because it hasn't been a need for the 3 years that we've been talking about it. Anyway, but I just want to be honest. That's what's in my head.
I'll also be honest, why it hasn't been talked about, because I think when we hear about the program, we can see where we feel, I think as a community, when we talk about expanding the program and expanding the CTE program, it's never been publicly talked about that we were getting rid of an ag space or getting rid of a greenhouse. It was always talked about that we were getting a new greenhouse. And so unless it was said that we were going to demo our existing ag area, why would anyone assume that? And they would just think that a new greenhouse was
Well,
being added.
no disrespect, but I've had a lot of conversations about the greenhouse and you've never been a part of any of those conversations. So you haven't heard it, but it's definitely been public.
I don't think it's been very public, is what I'm saying, 'cause it's not just me that hasn't heard it, I don't think a lot of people heard any mention.
These,
And I went back and reread the bond issue, and nowhere in the bond issue did it talk about demoing our existing ag. area.
these, Katie, with all due respect,
I'm not.
these plans, oh, well, okay, I'm sorry.
Center place, not down.
These plans have been public knowledge for 3 years. So,
And the parking lot's been spoken about since, I believe I took over.
The parking lot was talked about, but it never talked about that we were going to take it away, or add it.
Yeah.
But, and so I want to correct something that you said at the last meeting too, because I wasn't at the last meeting. But the parking lot decision was not made first. And then, okay, if this is the great decision about where the parking lot goes, then we have to move the greenhouse. The greenhouse was the priority. And when the idea about where the greenhouse was going to go was in people's minds, then it was, okay, let's look at the space that we have, what's the best place for parking? So greenhouse first, that's priority, parking next. If there's a decision that a greenhouse gets relocated, say, for example, to the existing space, then we relook at where the added parking goes. But that's the order in which decisions are made. It was not the reverse. We have to move the greenhouse because we need the space for parking. That was never part of the conversation. That was implied at the last meeting when I wasn't at and I watched it, and that was not factual. So I just wanted to correct that.
I have a question. I found out about all this in the very last week, so I admittedly have not been involved. So let's say you replace one greenhouse with the other. Whether you do it in the same space or not. I guess one of my questions with that, let's say you put it in the exact same space that it's in, because of the footing, the drainage, whatever. Where we look at time frame wise of doing that, so that you're not taking down the greenhouse during the school year when it's used, and trying to timing the construction time, so that the greenhouse,
Yeah.
the new one is put up.
So I agree with that 1,000,000%. In fact, we've had to do that for everything, right? It was really why we needed to get started on the HVAC system at this school, so that it was going to be done to a sufficient degree before it got too cold, and we'd have to shut down school and do the senior high school, which we know would be. We have roofs at the 2 elementary schools. We can't be doing roofs while the kids are in school. Like a lot of these projects, the whole science lab renovations, we can't be ripping out the science labs and replacing them while kids are in the science classes. So that pretty much is an issue across all projects that we have, with maybe a couple of small exceptions, like the playground at Wallaroon can be redone while the old playground stays because it's completely in a different location and everybody's good with that. But for the most part, every project has that issue. So that is absolutely not.
So that kind of factors in whether you use, say you don't use the same space, then it becomes
Easy.
less of an issue because you don't have to tear down the old one. If you did the parking later, you don't tear down the old one until. the new
And that was the
space.
plan.
That
We've
was the
talked
whole
about
point
that.
of moving it. To be honest with you, that was the hard, and, you know, we know that this program is a heart of the community, but also the school. And that this CTE pathway is vital to our school district. Nobody, like, all of us are on the same page with that. When we've been talking about this project, we have spent more time talking about this greenhouse than any other piece of it, well, except maybe the HVAC. But I think we understand. So, you know, the idea that we invest, we didn't just pick any greenhouse, we, you know, this is like supreme. So for us, I think we're sitting here thinking, we've been working on this for so long. We thought we came up with something that the community was kind of, wow, this is amazing. They're really investing in our program. And I don't want to speak for Katie's presentation because I'm not sure exactly what you're going to present, but I saw something that I think might be part of it. And, you know, I'm an educator too. And part of, I actually teach a course on CTE pathways. So this is my heart. But part of growing a program isn't always about expanding the space. And a really great aspect of CTE programs is getting kids off of campuses and into workspaces. And we have people who have great workspaces. And maybe an opportunity is we move forward with this greenhouse and we look at ways of expanding this program by branching out into the community, getting kids with farmers, with people who have all this experience, hands-on experience. One teacher can only do so much. And think about all of the different experiences that they can have going to different locations. So again, I don't think we're in, you know, different places. I think for us, we're a little emotional because it's like we've been putting a lot into this. It's sort of like having somebody come to a party you've been planning and then be like, oh, this color scheme's not going to work, and you've already planned the whole thing. So I think if we can kind of take that out of it, and I'm really excited to see what you, and I know everybody is, about what you have planned for the program. And make no mistake, like we've been talking about this the whole way through. We want to see this program grow. That's why this investment happened. So I appreciate hearing the history about what has been built, and all of the work that went into it. Like that kind of stuff brings me to tears, thinking about a community coming together and building with their own hands and getting materials donated. I don't think we want to lose that, but we also want to, you know, if we have an opportunity through this grant to get kids exposure to the newest technology, there's value in that. And in this situation, we get 2/3 of that back, like 2/3 of our investment back. And maybe there's some other opportunities for them to have some of these other experiences. You know, I saw kids learning about like, the history and the foundation of growing, and that is so important. So maybe we can still provide that, just maybe we have to think outside of the box, like we were talking about.
A lot has changed in the last 20 years since the greenhouse was put up. A lot has changed in this building. I have to say that I am totally impressed with the maintenance in this building over the last, I don't know how many years, sir, but I'm really impressed with the changes. I'm sure the committee is aware that this greenhouse is going to have to be maintained constantly. You can't let it fall apart like that. No, it can't have the inner walls not repaired. It can't have all of that. And is there money in the budget? Is there going to be money in the budget to keep up with this technology?
The answer is
Yes.
yes. It has to be. For us to take the money from RIDE, we have to provide the budget to maintain it.
Just so part of creating pathways, we're creating them for the kids in our community, but we're also creating this for kids in other communities to come into our community and take these classes. And with that, they bring in funding. So by expanding this program, it also starts to pay for itself, you know, the maintenance and those
But
kinds
in
of
that expansion, would it also be worthwhile? I don't think that the real estate problem yet is ground. That area that you have, and the reason you have that you're talking about is because of what was done with that greenhouse. You can then hold that right up to that speed, and you can still provide room. If you want to expand and grow up and bring in Perkins, but just going on a specific avenue, but the new and forgetting traditional way of farming and sustainability may not be. And again, I have a letter that I read from March 2000 that says about the greenhouse being used as a greenhouse, but also a version of that. The prior administration, because when you fill that with things and you don't want to make such a way, you launch yourself. It's like buying a piece of property in Florida. That's the only place I can go for my retirement, because I'm locked with destination. Maybe with this way, the old, which is already there, and we already have money to ride, and we have worked hard on, and I understand that. We could merge the two together, and as far as the maintenance of both facilities, I think through management, top management, the old existing greenhouse can still be used. Where can Katie get a classroom 40, 50 feet long? They can have children all around the table with perfect visibility on other plants besides just growing that plant. Some can be used for propagation, maybe some can be used for different breeding. But there's so many things that you want to draw students here. You can't lock yourself to a specific thing. If you want to expand the program, I'm a big fan of that today, the CT program, have that all my life. I think you have an opportunity here.
I am too,
And grow.
as I said,
Yeah, all greenhouse can be idle down, you know, in the past. But those costs and maintenance, maybe if it is a learning plan and there's no students in it, maybe January, February, we drain the plumbing system. It doesn't need to be heated as this thing is gonna be a 12-month facility. And as far as upgrading that greenhouse, it's not one that's a community.
But it's different now. You can't just have people coming in and working on things without liability and all that type of stuff. We have people going out there setting up things that right now shouldn't be on the property, setting things up because one, I'm not aware of it, and if somebody gets hurt, that's a liability. You can't just come in and start working on things. It's not right. I come in and stuff is built. I'm like, when did this happen? And if somebody had got hurt building that, like,
Well, as part of project-based learning, we do get permission. I did get permission.
not on everything. You have to admit, you didn't get permission on everything from me, and I'm the facilities manager. I didn't even know what was happening.
Fencing and the whole frame. That's what I put up. I didn't put up anything else.
No, I'm
Okay.
talking about putting up
this isn't helpful.
stand, okay, I'm gonna stop.
But I would be really interested in the conversation about a direction with 2 greenhouses. My problem is we are 2 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks into a 3-year conversation before I ever became aware that that was on anybody's radar. And that's not fair. So we can talk about the merits of it, but we are in a really bad spot as a group of people who are trying to support a program for an idea that was never talked about in 3 years that we've been discussing this greenhouse as a priority. And I remind you that we started with $95 million worth of projects. We cut that down to 1/5, basically, of what we originally proposed in the greenhouse state. That's how much we want to support the program. It's really, really unfair for that idea to be thrown out at the last minute. Even if there's merit to it, it's like our backs are against the wall at this point. It's a really bad spot.
I mean, we've spent $500,000 planning these projects.
Yeah.
Because we've had to redo the plan so many times. And now we're talking about changing the plan again and incurring more costs.
We're also down to an ordering deadline if we want to get something in.
Yeah, we are on a deadline, we are on a deadline to get this thing on order if we want to see it this year.
I don't think there's an issue with installing anything with the new greenhouse. I don't see a huge problem with keeping the existing. I think the real estate is there. I think the presentation, you guys also did work on this for 3 years. That. Yes.
Hey, Jeremy, I don't know, it's not going.
Yeah, hit the power button a couple of times. Oh, maybe it's not plugged in.
No one's pressuring
Versus yours and my Zoom.
What I was kind of hoping we could do is launch the.
You can have the link, right? Now
No, I
you're gonna
wouldn't be
see
able to
like,
stay connected.
because you're gonna see my, all this other stuff around it versus what you see, because it's my own personal account.
While we're waiting
Just
for her to
press
set
play
up,
and then
I just
no,
want to
because
let
it's
the
my
committee
own,
know
like,
one thing.
when it's
Your minutes and your agendas have not been posted on the Secretary of State site, which is a state law since January.
It's not true at all.
Well, it's not there. I just checked it. I checked it 2 weeks ago. Somebody should look into it and find out why it's not coming up. The last minutes that they have is January 2021.
We'll play with yours.
Are you saying the minutes aren't posted or the meetings aren't posted?
Minutes are posted, but the minutes
Does that
aren't.
make sense?
Do you want me
I
to
can
send you the
present at the
minutes?
same
But
time.
I can do that.
No, I just want to let you know that you're
All
not.
right, so you want to take this off then?
I'm giving you an
No, you-
opportunity because I have to
I can't bring
know
that up.
what the law is.
Don't worry.
That's
So
all.
how do I present at the same time you're
So
presenting?
someone
You're gonna
should look
present,
into
but
that to make sure
people
you don't have a
online-
problem
You're
down the
gotcha.
line.
Okay.
So I have a link to this?
You do, I think this, building committee gave you, and one of the emails. So this is just kind of a vision that we as a science department kind of came up with to help expand the program and to provide skills that we currently don't have right now for the students when they're leaving here, whether they're going right into the workforce or if they go to a college or university. So we kind of came up with this plan in hopes that this would really get kids engaged, it would excite them, and they'd want to come here, they'd want to come from other districts to stay here in order to learn agriculture. So I think, is it going to be based on my volume? Probably only on this.
So today, I want to share with you a vision that we have for our agricultural pathway in order for students to get more diverse opportunities in the agricultural field. We think that this is really going to excite students. It's going to allow for our ag pathway program to expand, and it's going to allow for more students from other districts to want to join and become part of our CTE pathway. As you know, currently in our agricultural pathway, we have the following classes: Intro to Agriculture, Animal Science, Wildlife Management, Floriculture, and Horticulture. We truly believe that with this new vision that I'm about to present to you, that we're going to be able to add more classes to our offering, and it would be something like landscape and site management, aquaculture, aquaponics, hydroponics, floriculture, horticulture, animal science. As you know, one of the best things we have about our agricultural pathway is location. We can't express it enough. When the community members in Exeter and West Greenwich came together with parents, teachers, students, and businesses to build a greenhouse that really kickstarted our program. They had companies come in to do light meter measurements all around the area, and it was deemed after 48 hours collecting light samples from all different areas that this was the best location in order to construct the greenhouse for better plant growth and development. And if you drive around the school, you'll notice that the greenhouse is not in line with the building. And that's because it's not about looks, it was about functionality, and they really did it right. I would like to also talk about the area around the greenhouse, because we don't just use the greenhouse, we actually use the land around it just as much as the greenhouse itself. In our agricultural science classes, we do a lot of hands-on activities. I teach using a lot of project-based learning, so I give a list of different projects and ideas for students. They pick an area of interest. They then have to research that information. Then they're going to make a presentation. They then have to carry out a design, and then they actually have to implement it. So really, it's not like, all right, here's your topic. What did we used to do in colonial times? What do we do now? And then I want you to implement a system to make it better. So this is Kyle from the spring, and he was in the class, and he was really into cold frames. Cold frames and hydroponics really the wave of the future. In agriculture, there's a huge push right now to grow more food on less land with less inputs with the increasing population. Cold frames teach students how to raise and extend the growing season all winter long, fruits and vegetables, without the use of oil or gas inputs. So Kyle researched different varieties of different crops that he could grow throughout the winter time without the use of heat, except from the sun, obviously. So he built these raised beds. He grew out from seed the different varieties that he had researched. He added the compost and the soil to it. It really turned out to be an amazing project. So now I'm going to show you is a full frame that I have actually at my house that I use because I like to grow one as well all winter long without the use of oil and gas. So this is what it will look like on the inside. It's going to be plastic. I have the plastic for this. I also have wooden end walls. So we haven't put those up yet. But it just gives you an idea. This is like in the middle of the winter. On the right-hand side of the greenhouse, this is a picture of my floriculture class, and they are creating and measuring out designs for cold frame tops to use on the raised bed gardens. We use this area a lot as well for all the different agricultural classes. Someone from the community graciously donated a rolling We also have a compost pile right here on this side. And the students are learning to extend the growing season in floriculture using mini cold frames around the area. In addition, last spring, I had a group of students who wanted to do a chicken run. I run the chicken program at Lynham, and the goal really is to eventually have the chickens that we hatch at Lynham come back to here at UWG, and we can use those for animal science, because right now currently they have a lot with small mammals like rabbits. We don't have a lot of poultry, so this would be an addition for that. Also, the manure that we use from the rabbits as well as the chickens, we would also create raised bed gardens here and do vermicomposting, composting corns. We would feed them the manure and then eventually gather their castings at the plant sale. We would sell the castings, which is an amazing additive to gardens. In addition, one group decided to do fencing, so they had to research colonial fences all the way to modern day fences. They actually came up with a really nice design for the fence they wanted to use, but unfortunately, this year and last year was really expensive for wood. So we had a company that was really generous and was able to give us a pretty good deal on the cedar fence panels. And so the group agreed that it was way more advantage to use the fencing post from the cedar than it was for building up the design that they had because of the pricing. But they still got to learn and design and implement the fence installation. The fence is really important because not only does it define the area, but eventually we would love to see for animal science a little shed with maybe goats that we can use, have vets come, and then we can house the animals and then send them back by the end of the day, because we don't have as much classroom space in order to house the animals. In addition, we would like to do landscape design and management. We'd like to landscape the whole interior portion of the fence as well as the exterior portion of the fence. We'd love to create flower gardens. And then the fall, when we return to school, the flowers would be in bloom. This floriculture class would then take those blooms, make arrangements, make centerpieces, offset the costs to the floriculture class, because as everyone knows, flowers are extremely expensive, especially in the last few years. So again, it's kind of like a self-feeding program. The plant sale kind of helps fund all of these different cool activities that, again, are providing more opportunity in the agricultural fields. So the community built in a really amazing greenhouse that we have used for a long time now. It's in an amazing sunny location. There's awesome drainage inside here. We've never had an issue with puddles and stuff like that on the floors. The large land area around the greenhouse is just as important, and it has provided so much opportunity for project-based learning, and we hope that that continues. The vent fans also do an amazing job circulating air between all of these plants, and as you see in the picture, we have events on plants. We have top benches, floor benches on the floor, as well as hanging up and hanging baskets. The motors, the circulation fans, the temperature controls, they're all new. I bought those with the funds from the plant sale. And there's all different types of greenhouses out there, and the main thing really is this is an education greenhouse. So this really needs to be large enough to house all these plants in addition to holding 20 to 25 adult-sized bodies in there at a time. And this greenhouse really does a great job at that. So as with all greenhouses, even the greenhouses that I have at home, plastic and net walls eventually need replacing. And this greenhouse is no exception to all the others. Over time, the plastic degrades, and that's basically what is the major issue in this greenhouse. I think if we could replace the plastic and the end walls, that would help to reduce the humidity issues and it would allow this greenhouse to be way more energy efficient, just like it was when the plastic was new. We had quotes from Ringel Greenhouse in New Hampshire. Ringel is a greenhouse company that has built greenhouses for Ohio State, Kansas State, Penn State, and University of New Hampshire, all of which have nice ag programs. And they gave us a quote for around $10,428 to replace plastic in the top as well as the end walls. And I think that's really going to be helpful to make it more energy efficient, to allow us to still maintain this large education greenhouse in order to create the plant sale and funds that we need to fund all of the other activities that we have. This does not include labor, but he did give me 3 people in our surrounding area that he would strongly recommend to actually do the job of the developer and the animals. So now what I want you guys to see is what we really need to help expand this program. We would love it if we could have a new greenhouse next to the original one that I just showed you to be used as a hydroponic germination facility. As we said before, the wave of the future really is full frames and hydroponics. The new technology that will be in this greenhouse will help us to increase increase food crops, less land. We would probably use a combination of vertical and horizontal systems. My goal would be that in the spring, we would grow out vegetable crops from horticulture class, and that could be used for cafeterias that we have at different schools in the district. I also would really love it if we could give back to the community, since the community gave us so many things to jumpstart this ag program, and really donate food to local food banks. Not only could the horticulture class grow food for different venues, but also we could expand upon this. We can say, all right, not only are we growing food, but in the fall, we can use this greenhouse. And just like they do in Holland, we can grow our flowers hydroponically. This would help offset the cost again for the horticulture class. They can sell the bouquets and arrangements, and all this money would go back into running the program for the following year. Also, we take it even a step further. How cool is that, right? So not only can we use the hydroponics, but now we can have the wildlife management classes create systems that help us to raise fish and do aquaculture. You pull this up, and underneath it would be fish. Waste of one would be the inputs for the other. So this has a lot of potential. This would really create and expand our program to what we already have that will provide totally different opportunities in the agricultural field. This is kind of the pictures of what we envision our agricultural pathway to be like. To expand our program, we really think that this could allow our high school to be the largest high school horticulture facility in the state. It would allow students a diverse opportunity in the agricultural pathway. Students would want to come here, students would want to stay here. And the reason that is because providing them multiple opportunities, sparking interest. So if I look here on the left, you would keep the cold frames, you would allow the original greenhouse structure that the community built to remain, and walls and the plastic. We would still run this and use this for the horticulture class or the plant sale. The money from the plant sale will help fund all the other activities that we have going on for our other agricultural classes. The hydroponics could be used for donations, could be used for local food banks. It could be used for food in the cafeteria. We can raise fish. We could also raise flowers in order to offset the cost for floriculture. So this would really allow winter production for horticulture, winter and ag, space for the animals around the area. We can expand into goats, get some poultry out there. We can still do vermicomposting, composting farms, flower production for floriculture, greenhouse crop management here in the spring, the landscape design and management classes to learn and landscape around the whole entire facility. And all of those plants can help feed into other systems. We also can expand and even allow biotechnology into these different greenhouses for propagation techniques. This really has a lot of potential. Now, many of you are probably wondering, okay, well, this sounds great, but what about the parking? So we figured out a way to get around parking. I think is going to be great. So parking is, we would create a faculty and staff parking lot. I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide. Near the high school building, diagonal from the senior lot. One full row in the senior lot is designated for teachers. So if we create a faculty and staff parking lot near the building, those teachers in that whole row all along the road there on the senior lot would be allowing more kids to park. Half of the junior lot is also teachers. So this is going to open up another whole half lot. So the purpose of this really is to allow for more student parking and teachers to be closer to the building. We can also now create handicap parking spaces that are right next to the actual door of the building. And it also allows teachers to bring in their supplies and not park next to kids who just got their license with the scratching everything on the car. So it's kind of a win-win. Kids are getting more spaces, teachers are getting closer to the building, and they're not necessarily parking right next to someone with their license, right? But the main thing, all of this, and this whole entire project is for education for kids. And that's going to be to allow the greenhouses and the cold frames to be in the sunniest location that we have at our school, which is currently where they are now, for plant growth and development. My fear is in your proposed plan here, that if we stick the greenhouse here, there's not much room for me to expand. I won't be able to have more than one facility, and I fear as though that's going to take us backwards instead of expansion and forward. If you look on the screen, this area right here is the junior lot. So I just kind of made a line here in red. This is currently kind of the area where the greenhouse and cold frames are currently. So I would suggest that we keep this area for our agricultural pathway. That would still allow for the junior lot to be paved, all these parking spots would still be there. You could still park straight all the way across here like you wanted before. But this little area in here that gets the most sunlight would keep the cold frame, the greenhouse, and the new, hopefully, hydroponic and germination facility in order to really jumpstart and expand our program. The new greenhouse proposed for faculty and staff, new parking lot for faculty and staff would go here where you have the proposed greenhouse. This would be parking for faculty and staff. This first row right here is where teachers are currently and have give us all that room for senior parking and all of this new expanded area right here for junior parking. So as always, our vision is for education. It's for children. This really is going to expand our agricultural program for current students. It also will allow for more kids to want to come here and be part of the CTE pathway for future generations, to allow for the growth of more project-based learning and course offerings by keeping the area where it is located currently. We would keep the cold frame and the original greenhouse where they are. We would place new plastic and end walls on the greenhouse because it's still a great functioning greenhouse from the community. We would add the new hydroponic greenhouse to the right of the original. We would add a little faculty and staff parking lot with some handicap parking spaces closest to the school near that door. We would pave and keep the junior lot, and you would still be able to pave all on the back side of the greenhouse as you had before in your vision, and that will allow for more student parking. You know, I live in this district. My own children go to school here in this district. I want this program to be amazing for them. I have nieces who will be coming up to the high school next year. I want this program to be amazing for them. I have friends in the community. I want this program to be fantastic for them. So I know that all of us may have different views on what we see fit, but I truly believe that this, by keeping this where this is and using different facilities, we really can expand. We're going to create opportunities that we cannot do in this little area right here. So I thank you very much for giving me the time to present this today.
I mean, I think it sounds amazing. But I've been at presentations where we've been shown what the ag science program is going to look like in the future, and it was never this. And that is, it's just, we are in a really bad spot, and it's not fair.
Even so, no one sitting here at this table tonight can make a decision to do anything different than what we're currently chartered to do, and that is to move forward with the new greenhouse. And to your point, if they want to maintain too, and don't get me wrong, I like the presentation. I think the presentation is great. But where's the money going to come from to support it and maintain it into the future?
Does it have to be something like, I'm thinking, well, let's say you do the plastic animals this year, right? So let's be real, let's say the bond didn't pass. We weren't gonna fix all that stuff in the greenhouse this year anyway, regardless, right? We weren't gonna redo the heating and the water and everything.
We were going to tear it down.
No, I'm saying if you didn't have the bond, like, you know what I'm saying, let's say if it was a year where like, hey, it didn't pass, right? We weren't gonna tear that structure down. We would have still used it for horticulture class.
Yeah, we would have been out there fixing it.
Right, so what I'm saying is, what if I want to raise a lot of money, so let's say, I don't know, I fundraise about $10,000 and you can use towards the plastic. So what if you did plastic and end walls this year, and then over time, all right, now you're fixing, you know, maybe you want to redo the heater, you redo the heater.
What about fuel? Why put a heater in it? Where's the fuel going to come from? At
Well,
$3.50?
we used to pay for it in our, out of the plant sale funds, but the FFA over time changed that. I mean, if you want to go back to that, I mean, we could do something like that. I used to pay all the oil bills.
I mean,
From the FFA fund, from the plant sale. The plant sale was a self-funding program completely. It was,
So I just have two things.
and I don't want to do that, but I could do that.
The first is that, and I don't think this was explicitly stated tonight, but in order for us to qualify for the large reimbursement from the state, projects need to be not completed by, but started by a particular date, which is December 22, I think, right? So.
You have to be under contract.
Have to be under, I'm right on that, right? It's December 22, so you have to be under contract. So December 22 is now exactly 1 year away from where we are right now. That does not give a ton of time. I mean, if we did a little bit now and wanted to do some later on, there's not a ton of time for the other element of the project to be started, meaning, just so that everybody is aware, anything that is not under contract by December of 22 is no longer eligible for all that reimbursement, which is a big selling point of the bond in the first place. Just throwing that out there. And the second thing is, again, I think that there's like information out in the community. I just want everybody to be aware. I've budgeted 3 separate times for the plastic on the old greenhouse to be replaced, and it hasn't been replaced. So I think the messaging has been, why are we wasting money on a greenhouse that we're replacing? I don't understand where, like, we have a totally different message right now than anything that at least I've been receiving. Maybe I received it wrong, but it's just.
I think everyone's excited about a new greenhouse for our kids, but I think the hard part is the.
What the superintendent said, and this is really critical for everyone to understand. It is not just losing funds for the greenhouse that will be generated.
Correct.
The formula gives you bonus points for educational enhancement. And that greenhouse was part of the educational enhancement. So you really put in jeopardy the whole 5 additional points for.
So that would be meaning the labs and the roofs, everything.
It means that in, for example, a mechanical project, where we want to get an additional 5%,
Right.
it won't be applicable to it if you don't meet the educational.
And 5% of $17 million is a lot of money. Actually, it's like more than the cost of the greenhouse.
I'm not proposing that we do anything different as far as building a new greenhouse is concerned. And if this old greenhouse wants to be maintained somehow, I see 2 big problems. One, where's the money gonna come from to do it? If they want to do it over time, that's fine, and on their money, that's fine. But, you gotta budget fuel for that thing at $3.50 a gallon, and then what do you do about all the missing parking spaces? Where's that gonna go? And what's that gonna cost to ship it at this stage of the game where we're in the final submission? I mean, we're ready to go. And that's not a decision this committee can make anyway.
No.
You're gonna have to go to the school committee to get that. So, I mean, right now, we're moving forward with the new one. If you want anything else, that takes before the school committee to get that. I mean, that's not our charter.
Is there enough space in that area where the current greenhouse exists to put a separate greenhouse next to it?
Does mean a new one?
Next to the old one.
Could you is there enough space to put a new greenhouse next to the old one so that the space you allocated for the new greenhouse could be used for parking? Is that an option either?
Yes, there's no space in that area.
So that you could still go forward with the new greenhouse, you could still contract that out, you still get the reimbursement for that. And we could buy a little bit of time for us to brainstorm and work and figure out how to come up with funds to refurbish the old one so that you could have both. You'd still have your parking and you'd still have your new facility and be able to go forward that. Is that an option? That's my first question. And the second question is, if the money was budgeted for the plastic, why wasn't it recovered?
Because it didn't make it through the budget process.
Yes, it
No,
did.
Oh, it
It
did.
did.
3 times.
Okay.
Wasn't the maintenance stuff.
So, yeah.
I can answer the question.
Yeah.
So this is the thing, and I'm not trying to be a wise guy here at all, because this is what I live. You reskin the greenhouse skin catches on fire. Who owns the liability? Who owns the liability? The district does. The first question they're gonna ask you, who approved the greenhouse? The school committee. What engineering was done on that? Oh, there was no engineering. Where are we now?
You're in a lawsuit.
I'm in a lawsuit. And that's a hard reality. People don't want to think about that when we do these things. But I can tell you what, RIDE thinks about it. And I think about it, and the reason RIDE thinks about it is because tangentially, they're gonna get named in a new lawsuit. You know that, you're a business
So
person, you know
they're
that.
asking for glass cover. You
Pardon?
can't use poly, right, will use poly?
Pardon?
RIDE won't let you use a plastic covering, you must use plastic.
No, if you wanna buy one and put one on in your yard, that's fine. If you wanna buy one and have an engineer stamp it, now you're in a whole nother world.
So it's because it's a school and it's a.
Pardon?
It's because it's public.
Well, that's what we tried to discuss earlier, RIDE standards.
Polycarbonate, those are RIDE standard?
This
That's like a pretty
this new
standard-
greenhouse,
pretty standard
this
greenhouse,
new
right?
greenhouse is RIDE standards.
I think,
The old one
I
does not.
I think you're missing the point here. The point is this. Can you put a new, could we put a new one on there? Absolutely. When it goes wrong, and there's no engineering stamp, there's no due diligence as about the ASTM safety and who made sure it was constructed perfectly and who was the clerk of the works and who was all of those things.
None of which were in place at the time.
None of that's in place. So,
The original was built.
and that is different. That is different than saying, can we put in a cold frame that we're gonna skin with poly and it's gonna be made out of flex tubing and it's gonna go on these non-pressure treated 2x12s and the kids will just reach in there? Not a problem. It will be a problem when one of those tubes flips out and takes out a kid's teeth, because that lands on the desk too. So when you go down the path of saying, we're gonna put a $10,000 skin on this, it's not just $10,000. It's who's designing it, who's putting it in there, who's removing it, who's making sure that there's any sort of, all of the compliance issues. And I mean, I think you guys said you're in business. I'm sure you know about compliance.
Yeah, I
So,
wasn't realizing that.
and I'm sure you know about liability.
Yes.
And you know what? Everybody here is talking, right? We're all talking. But at the end of the day, somebody has to stand up and say, this could be a potential problem. And the fix is we either increase our insurance premium, we either bring in a civil engineer, an architect, I think the gentleman there said, you have certified installers. I mean, all of those things, nobody does any of that. In very rare instances, they do it for free. So when you say, oh, we have $10,000 to do this, that's great. That's great. But you need about another 7 to actually execute. And it's no fun, believe me, I get no joy out of that. But at the end of the day, I can sleep at night saying, most of the projects, if not, I'd say all of the projects that I'm involved in, all of those issues are covered because they have to be. They have to be. There's a fiduciary legal responsibility to do those.
What do we need to come up with money-wise to cover all those bases?
Do we need what?
What would we need to come up with money-wise to cover all those bases?
I don't know. I do want to say, because I'm sitting here and I'm trying to be, I get the passion, but all I can think of as I'm listening to this is, how many here, like you, how many greenhouses do you have? Did you say? Which one is the best one? If they're labeled 1 through 7, which one is the best one?
Either 6 or 7.
Okay, so this is the point, because this is a legitimate discussion. Because, and we all probably have more than one car in our driveway. Which car do you drive? The one you like. Which greenhouse is going to get used? Which greenhouse is going to get used? The one that everybody likes. And what greenhouse is going to fall fallow? The one that nobody likes to use. And that is a risk that we have to consider when we're doing these projects, because nothing's free. Nothing's free.
Consider that probably what would draw people into one greenhouse or another is going to be the education process that's going on. If the student wants to go in and participate in a certain function, they may choose to go in the old one, but that's where it's at.
So I'm thinking like annuals and perennials would be like, you know, maybe you could reduce it down, you could say 9th and 10th graders could go to the original greenhouse, and they're growing the normal horticulture class. 11th and 12th graders are now doing project-based learning, and they're doing the hydroponics. So it's every year, they're both being used, but totally different. Now I can go to a lower range inside the high school and get them started and excited even at a younger, versus waiting till your 11th and 12th grade to be able to use the greenhouse, the one. And in addition, right, it's more than just the greenhouse, right? We're also, it's an agricultural area, so we want space to expand and to do other things, and we have animal science and things like that too, so.
So Louis, so am I misunderstanding that you're saying that in a school setting, a plastic covered greenhouse is illegal? That you can't?
I don't know that anybody said that.
So you're saying that if you recover that greenhouse with plastic and redo the ends, that it's not a safe place for students to be? Is
I'm not
what
saying
Rise
that.
is
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if and when something bad happens, who owns it?
Well, that's true of the chair in the library.
That chair is insured. That chair, I could call the manufacturer and say, hey, the district has been named in a lawsuit because of your faulty chair that you provided to us, and now you're part of the lawsuit.
Is the current greenhouse insured?
Pardon?
Is the current greenhouse insured?
Yes, all the property is insured.
And if someone gets hurt on the property, whether it be a ball field, or tennis court, whatever it is, they would be covered in the same way as liability if somebody got hurt in the greenhouse, correct?
Correct. And that's why if you're talking about rescreening it, then there's a due diligence to say, is everything in place? Are all the stamps stamped? You should know, come on, guys. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, the last time that was reskinned, it was done by an outside contractor, came in that does that.
You just hired.
What year was that? What year was that?
The original poly that was put on there is not what's there today.
What year was that rescreened?
Oh,
When was the last time it was replaced?
it's been a long time. I couldn't
See,
say a year. But I can tell you that the original-
I can't see that. I can't give that. I'm not allowed to say it was a long time ago.
No, but you're also saying that.
I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest with you. I would be sitting here responding to 7 school committee members and my boss going, I don't know, it was a long time ago. I mean, I
think,
can't do that.
just if I can, Bob, tell me if I'm wrong, let me try to bring this all back.
We don't have the option here.
We could do that,
Which
we
is
could
what I'm saying.
reskin. But what we need to do whenever we bring somebody in to reskin, remodel, do anything, the rules now are very different than they were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? So we need to make sure that we've hired people that are going to stamp the project, make sure that it's going to improve, that it meets all the requirements. And anything, a $10,000 project, what Bob said, is a $10,000 project, probably costs $17,000 by the time you bring all the people in to ensure that you've done everything correctly, so that we have our bases covered in the event that something happens. We can say we did everything that we were supposed to do, we met all the requirements of the law. Our insurance agent has signed off on it, saying you did the right stuff, and we're covered. So it's not that we can't do it, it's that everything is more expensive on the school grounds now as compared to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, because the rules just keep changing and they are more complex and more costly.
The requirements got
Crazy.
I mean, there are companies that do
It's
this,
not-
that's been recovery.
For years.
It's not.
There's also an additional cost we will have. Let's say if we move forward with this plan, if we don't have the authority to do it, let's say we have to re-blueprint the whole plan. That is a whole nother cost. That has to go to Rise. That's gonna set us back.
Well, you
And
just
you
said-
just heard the whole committee side, because we've already been through this multiple times.
Yeah.
A lot of time, I wish that this had come to us even 8 months ago. You know,
I think
it's
people
happening.
tried, I think we tried to talk at this, just have conversations, and I don't think that's always been the option that was provided, but we've tried.
If you were to put the new greenhouse in the same footprint as the old one, does that have to be removed?
Not necessarily. Moving the location, I don't think would have to be a,
Well, the parking lot. has to be redesigned.
it would require a little bit of redesign, but not too much. But if we're talking about changing all the plans that have already been submitted,
You're not changing the plans of the greenhouse itself, just moving the location either to the footprint of the existing one or next to the existing one.
yeah, but then it changes parking too. We gotta figure out where those parking spaces are gonna go.
You have to
Is the
have,
parking part of the right?
you have to have your soil testing done. If you remember.
Yep.
before
Yeah,
state
so
laws,
that's the whole site.
Do you mind, can you just share with everybody what the process, I don't know if it's a lot, but, because I think it's important for everybody to understand that piece of it. So do you mind just, if, let's say we were going to go with moving the existing plan of the new greenhouse to the existing footprint. We were gonna move forward with that, or what happened?
So, minor changes are possible from stage 2 to 3. So we would first need to assess with Hvac if they would consider this a substantial change. So what was submitted and approved at stage 2 is what moved forward with the voters for the approval. Then that third stage starts. It's expected that as part of stage 2, you do certain testing to make sure that what you're proposing is valid. One of the things that they have us do is do soil borings to make sure that we design the foundation that's going to be able to be accommodated by the soils and that for sure. I'm not sure how much site survey was in that area. And so then that would all have to go through Hvac. They would need to approve the shift, and then we would have to start the schematic design for stage 3, which is going to be that I can tell you, at least 8 to 12 months. Just to schedule a rigor to do warrants, it's crazy.
And how much does that cost? Well, estimate to have at home, the new stem matters.
You have to check the soil again, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to have the correct foundation.
Just do the parking and where it's going to go. It's a process. It's a process that they want to make sure you accomplish during stage 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
The question that was put to you is, I believe, how much would it cost to renew this existing greenhouse? I think your answer earlier was 300,000.
Yeah, okay.
Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And then so that would allow you to keep this existing greenhouse, correct?
That was to renovate the existing versus build a new.
Well,
Not both. You still have all the additional costs of maintaining 2 versus 1. That doesn't change, and there's no operational budget for that.
They're just saying, redo the old greenhouse and not build a new one. Is that what you're saying?
no,
No, okay. I misunderstood.
no, I thought that the question was, how much would it cost in an effort to raise money to renew or refurbish the existing greenhouse?
There's a lot of pieces to that, because it's not just a question of upgrade the greenhouse. If we looked at this very early on in the process and we asked, does it make sense to renovate the existing one, or does it make more sense to build a new one? And we went out that prices on how much it would actually cost to bring the current one up to the current educational standards. The answer to that question is $300,000. we elected to go forward with a brand new greenhouse because it would have all the latest technology and and if we're gonna spend $300,000, we might as well spend what we're gonna spend on a new one. But then if you want to keep the old one and invest money in it and keep it that way and build a new one, which is already budgeted for, the question is, how much does it cost to move the parking that was going to go there? Because it's not just a question of how much it costs to keep the old one. It's what else do we have to find a new place for parking. He needs to go through and make all new schematic designs for that parking. And if we're gonna move the greenhouse for that too, he needs to do a site survey for that. There's a bunch of costs involved in that and a bunch of time that we don't have to do all that.
How many spots are they looking to gain?
I don't, it's on the plan, I don't know.
You know, what was the question?
How many spots? I do, that parking, lot, I believe is 64 spots.
The one that's proposed?
The new, yeah.
And how,
Not including the 12 on the street that exist today. We would reconstruct those. Just a bit.
Yeah.
So you are looking at, I believe it's 64 spots. with-
You have to plan. Talking about that, the one around the back.
Yeah, that-
Not the very much. So right now, they probably have the 12 that's in the actual, and maybe another 20. I think I'm driving here, they have
25?
Well, they walk through 3D in the area. Part of that parking may already
Good, sir.
exist. But
But again, not.
No, probably that's not.
Excuse me, you want to ask a question?
No, I just, I question if it's a parking lot issue or whether it's an educational issue where you're trying to expand the program.
At this point in time, it is,
But
it's a cost issue.
where do you put your priorities, given that the kind of greenhouses that are going in right now are these advanced greenhouses, so the sooner you can introduce your students to this kind of growing, which, as I understand, you want to start with the youngest, learning the most traditional growing techniques, and then followed by these more advanced techniques. And there's going to be a demand for these kind of skills.
And we'll need more parking. We get a bigger demand.
Part of the parking is about safety too. We've got parents, picking up and unsafe along 102. We've got huge traffic issues on 102.
And Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've had all kinds of studies done about the traffic flow around this building, which is why the parking was designed the way it was.
but if teachers park on the side, we're in here longer, we're not leaving when the buses are leaving, so like if you park next to the building, that would still provide more options. More junior parking lot, senior parking lot spaces, and then the teachers would stay, and then at the very end of the day, would be driving out.
So let's say we're too late to the game and we gotta live with the plans as they are. So how can we do that without losing some of the things that Katie's worked so hard to pull together? The chicken run, the whole frame, the raised beds, the pieces that are around the current greenhouse. Is there space for them to move over near where a new facility would go? We don't want to, or if not right there, someplace else in the vicinity, so that we're not losing those aspects of the program that she's worked really hard to build and are really important. How do we manage that piece?
So I know that when we had discussions about those things, I was told that they are all movable.
Okay.
They could all come down, they could all be moved, because again, conversation has always been one greenhouse with a location. That's why,
So,
I know I keep going back to the same thing, but I didn't know anything about this stuff before, right?
that's
So
fine, I mean,
in my
actually,
head,
I found out about this yesterday.
all that
So I
stuff
get it.
was movable, so that if a greenhouse gets relocated, these things can also be relocated.
But if they're relocated in the position that we have right now, you're against the building. So I have the building, then you're gonna put the new greenhouse in the corner, then I have trees. So if I put a cold frame behind it, I'm not gonna get much light, like I'm not gonna have that light there. The spot that it's in now, I do have ample opportunity, even if you just use one greenhouse versus two, the spot that it's in now has more light for all of the other projects.
What I would suggest, if possible, if we could meet and see how we can accomplish that, even if it's just clearing enough land. I'm not sure if we have to sum it.
What was the plan, cutting trees as it is, I mean, there must have been something trying to be cut to do this.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
not
saying
another behind anything else. You would have.
if
You
there
got
was
to set the fence.
additional clearing.
Is that an option?
I
Try to
think,
make it work.
I think it would be good if we.
The other thing we might want to do is meet with the former teacher at Narragansett and talk to him about the things that, the problems that arose, so you don't repeat the mistakes.
Well, I think that's already happened, so it would really just be a matter of conveying that
That's already
information
happened.
to us. So that, I think you already talked.
No, I haven't told you everything. No, not the list of stuff that he has.
Lou, where the new greenhouse,
He's conveyed it to somebody who conveyed the list to me very recently.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Okay, so I think the conversation's already happened in town, but that list of concerns hasn't been put on the table, I think. At least that's what I could be wrong.
may I ask a question? So we've done soil surveys where the new greenhouse is gonna go. You had to do that for the foundation, right? So you know what that says, correct? And have you done soil surveys for where the parking area is?
No.
No, you haven't,
Because you don't need to.
because you don't need it for where the parking area is. Would we, knowing that there's 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet of gravel under the current site, would we have to start over if we chose that site for the new greenhouse,
The existing location.
the existing location?
But the new greenhouse right on top of the old one.
They will absolutely.
Okay, so we would have to do new soil sampling there. Would we have to submit these plans?
Yes.
Okay. And how much time and money would that take?
I don't know about the money. Like I said, I think that whole process would be 12.
And we don't have time for 12 weeks.
The other thing too is it doesn't allow, right now, the way that the timing works is we were gonna be able to put the new greenhouse.
We don't use it in the fall. So you would have all fall to do that. We only, if you only have one greenhouse, we only use it in the spring semester. If we had the 2 greenhouses, the new one would have been used all year round for hydroponics and lighting. And then the old one would have been just used for the springtime like it normally is for work. We would have just pushed it down so that the 9th and 10th graders could have used that, the older facility first versus the new one.
Can the new greenhouse that's proposed also be used for horticulture, like the things that you
I
currently?
can't put both in there, I wouldn't have enough room, I'd have to take all the hydroponics out, and the funds, I make enough from the plant sale to fund everything else. So I can't do both, I can't do hydroponics in that one and the plant sale at the same time. It's not large enough, right? So that's my tricky spot. I mean, we have like a little classroom hydroponic set, but that's not what we want the kids, if you look at charter farms and things like that, like you want those kids to get that experience, you know, you want them to, so immediately they can go out, they can work at a hydroponic facility if they need to, if you know, they want to right off of work, or they can go to college, university and do more, but that's really the.
Is there an opportunity for them to do that in the community? Like,
They could, but not everyone has that ability with their schedule, especially with sports and everything after school and the layout for the schedule at the moment, so no. So I really think it'd be important to train them now, and then they can go out, then they have that. You know, some of the CTE work, obviously, as you know, right, you have to have that outdoor, you know.
it
experience, and they do as well.
Yeah, it does.
But it just sets it up so that everyone gets that opportunity.
I think we can brainstorm a little on that. Kate. Maybe make some of the hydroponics work in that fall semester if you want to.
I know,
If we think a little outside the box, outside of the traditional, what's it called? Not the edible benches, the pure, water-based hydroponics. There's other options. Everybody kind of gets it on with their television when it comes to hydroponics, and there's lots of other options. I think there's some other
Okay.
options. We work in the greenhouse in the fall to give that opportunity. We just gotta be a little creative.
We're outside, we're way outside the purview of this committee's responsibility at this point. I am going to ask for a motion to adjourn in a second. Okay, we got the motion, well, we got. I think that we need to move forward with the current plan. Sounds like the new greenhouse is wanted.
But could we change it to the same location? I think that would be,
I'm not even, based upon what I'm hearing, we don't have time.
Would be the other.
We can't, we would have to be on the new site. It would have to, be, just because the work's been done. We just have to make sure we clear the trees properly so that it has the proper soil.
but how many greenhouses do you see when you drive by against a building?
These questions aren't for me. This is
No,
stuff.
I know,
that
I'm just
brings
saying in
forward
general,
school
like,
committee.
it's, even if you chop the trees down, I have one whole building, I'm like literally putting greenhouses against a building, that's a lot, that's shade.
This isn't a question for me. This is a question for this committee.
Right.
Your questions need to go before the school committee. The school committee's got to make those decisions, and then they've got to charge us to make these changes. Right now, this is way outside. My mission is to continue to move forward with what we got. So that's where I'm at. And
We did have the master gardener from URI take a look at where we're putting this one, because we had that concern.
That's, you should really have a hydroponics or a
motion's been
Maynard.
made and seconded. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.